Welcome to Clean Your Toilet podcast, where we uncover what's hiding in plain sight. Just like a toilet that needs constant maintenance, we need to maintain ourselves and our lives. We tackle uncomfortable truths here at this podcast, and we talk about what truly matters. We get real about the journey of life, from the common to the controversial. We uncover what's under the surface because sometimes what you don't see is what shapes your world the most. And today I want to find out what's under the surface with me, what's going on, and maybe with my life and the work that I do. So let's get to cleaning. Can we do that today, you think?
Sure. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So a little bit about myself. I'm Sunaina Suri. I'm a full-time mother right now to a 1.5-year-old. And I used to be in special education teacher, might go back to that. And I'm a writer of nonfiction, and I have a book that's out. You can buy it. It's called Our Own Voices, a collection of Singaporean mental health journeys. And it's just that. It's a collection of stories that I received and got from different people based on interviews about their mental health, people who live in Singapore. And we touch on mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, and postpartum depression. And here's our guest, Xing Jian.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Xing Jian. You can also call me XJ. I respond to both. I've been a life coach for 17 years now. And I would say right now, my area of interest and specialization is men's mental health, right? And also, apart from that, to be on this podcast has been quite an honor because we get to talk about deep personal development work, inner work. What does that really mean? Because there's so many ways to go into ourselves and to learn more. And I think that's like very crucial, right? As the world keeps evolving and as we have to go through the thing we call life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The maintenance is so important.
Correct. Because I think it's very easy to get caught up with the everyday living, right? Working, living, all the roles that we do. And then sometimes we just forget to take care of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we get caught up in the minutiae of everything.
Yes.
And then this is a nice way to like pause and kind of step back.
Correct.
And
yeah.
like you're giving us.
So I'm fully using the recording of like this podcast as an opportunity for myself to also check in and we see how things go.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah. So every time I have a new host who's like working with me is quite exciting because I don't know what the host is gonna bring. I don't really know what exactly the host will ask. And of course, we never know what will unfold during the session.
Wow. So I can deflect and make you work on yourself and not me work on myself, actually.
I mean, yes. But then I would propose that we can both try to move ahead in our journey of self-work. And we see where that goes.
Yeah. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you share more about like the book or...
Yes. Yeah. So the book... The book journey was interesting. So I decided to do a book about mental health quite suddenly. It was after COVID. And I felt like actually kind of what you're saying, what this podcast is saying, like I wanted to take a step back and be like, what's going on with the people around me? What are people feeling? And how does that, in a selfish way, how can I learn from them? I always like to learn from other people. I don't like the Google ChatGPT thing. I want to be like, what did you experience? How can I learn from that?
Correct.
So in doing that, like one of the first questions I want to ask you is that I felt like a lot of imposter syndrome because I started out in being a chef, and then because I went to culinary school, and then I was in marketing, and then I studied philosophy and linguistics, went into special education. So none of these things are fully mental health related, although there is a crossover with special education. And so when I went into doing the book, I constantly felt imposter syndrome, and I felt that someone's going to come up to me and say, why are you doing this? But the community was amazing. They kept saying like, as someone working on this kind of thing, that's great, And like a journey that happened for me was that when I was young, any new experience, I'd be like, I'm so excited. I can't wait. And then it became like fear and like imposter syndrome, like being nervous and like, hey, why am I getting to do this? Why am I doing this? That's not fair, or like, I don't deserve it. So I wanted to ask you, like, why would that shift happen in someone like me or anyone?
Well, number one, there's so many words to unpack there.
Yeah.
Like, especially the end part where you said like it's not fair or why do I deserve it?
Yeah.
We can come back to that. I wanted to share with you, I guess, my first impression, hearing you just give this quick summary of your journey.
Yeah.
The words that came to mind were, modern day Renaissance woman who does so many things.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. I think, I don't even know if the term is still used now.
Yeah.
You know, multi-hyphenate.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if people still use that term now. But it felt a little bit like that. And I don't see anything particularly wrong.
Yeah.
So-called or not great about this situation. Yeah. So then I would say, to your question around imposter syndrome and everything, it could be connected to maybe something else. And the clue lies in the back two bits about feeling undeserving or feeling unfair.
Yeah.
Well, but why do those words suddenly come up? Or it's not suddenly, it's always there.
Yeah, I feel like I used to be someone who didn't care what people thought. And then maybe the more people give their opinions, I don't know what it is. Like, I want people to like me and be okay with me, be happy in themselves and in a situation. So, like, if someone doesn't give me, like, an emotion that shows, hey, I really like what you're doing, or I really am fine with what's going on here, I always, like, am, like, questioning, hey, is it okay? So whenever I was doing interviews for this book, I was like, I'm hoping the whole time, I'm like, I hope this person's feeling comfortable here. I hope it's okay.
Like as a mental note.
Yeah.
It keeps
constantly.
Going.
Anytime I'm in a conversation, I'm just totally thinking like, hey, I hope they're okay with me, you know? But I think like you're someone who seems from like talking to you right now, like gives me emotion and it makes me feel comfortable. So I don't think that as much right now.
I see.
But usually I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know how to tackle imposter syndrome or like, but I realized it crept up, like you were saying earlier, it crept up on me. And then like, hey, I didn't look back and maintain that part of me, like to make me feel okay in situations.
Okay. So I guess there are many ways we can look at the topic of imposter syndrome. Do you have a specific angle you want me to come at this topic with?
Maybe the angle of how do we tackle being okay with having it and still be okay to do something new and being like, it's okay if people don't. Like if one day someone really came up to me and be like, why did you think you could do this book? I have to at that night sleep and be like, okay. Like I can sleep knowing I'm a good person and I'm okay and like no one can change their opinion on me.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's where I have that issue. Like I fear that someone's saying that.
So on imposter syndrome, I feel that one way to go into it is definitely like literally what you just said. Like working around that acceptance of, number one, it is a real thing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And then separate the judgment of it. Like a lot of people think that it is a bad or maybe it's a good thing. I think when you put a value judgment on imposter syndrome, then it becomes problematic because then you kind of string along all your additional other hang-ups that maybe might have nothing to do with the task on hand. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So like for example, when you're compiling the book, your role is like information gatherer, interviewer. Yeah. And technically speaking, those are supposed to be very neutral roles. Yeah. Right? And then having the thought of you in your mind that says, I hope they're okay with me, is totally nothing to do with like interviewer or the task of data gathering. Yeah. Right. So then that becomes more of like a person-to-person interaction thing. Yeah. So to me then my assessment or my assumption is that maybe you have something about like human relationships or people-to-people relationships or maybe strangers, right? Especially when maybe if you're moving to a different space or if you're doing something for the first time and then that brings up these feelings or these thoughts. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think meeting new people as an adult is really scary because I don't know, as a kid, everyone's new to everyone. And then now as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, I'm this totally defined person, right? We're mostly defined by the time we're an adult, like who we are. Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, so this is me. Yes. Like, and then they have to like me for who I am. Yeah. And that's a very big like self-esteem thing, I think, like coming into play. And so, like I cannot separate. Like you're saying separate the task at hand and no. Like,
cannot.
Yeah, like I could, like, how do you do that? Because I think that's a big thing about me. Like, I love I can't go into a situation and not have a relationship with someone. I need to form a connection. That's who I am.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're saying really actually makes sense. Like, you could go into an interview and be like, after that, okay, bye to the person. But actually, I maintained a lot of my relationships with the people I interviewed.
Okay.
Like, a few of them became friends and like. So actually,
So
I wonder if I should separate a bit more.
Okay, so maybe to clarify then, it's not separate and say that you don't want to have a relationship or a connection with the individual. But it's more about, are you personally aware of like the machinations in your mind?
Yeah.
Right? That's a bit different, right? Like, I'm here to do an interview, I'm here to gather data.
Yeah.
Technically, it should have nothing to do with, does the person feel comfortable with me?
Yeah.
That's a me thing.
Yeah. So that actually goes into like talking about mental health.
Yes.
When you talk to someone about their mental health, I think, so maybe it was a subject matter. Because for me, talking about mental health, especially in like our Asian society, like I'm from Singapore, I grew up here, and like I feel like we have a hard time talking about mental health even now. And we talk about like this month is men's mental health
awareness.
Shout out. So like I think we need to talk about it more. And I think because before this book, I wasn't very well versed in talking to people about mental health. And I actually got conversations going a lot with people in my life. I would just say, hey, I'm working on this book. And they start talking to me about their mental health.
Oh.
And we it could be a friend of 10 years. We never talked about mental health.
Correct.
And just saying I'm working on the book gave them a space to like talk about it.
So that was the opening.
That was the opening, yeah.
Okay.
So like I feel like maybe because it was about mental health, I felt like, I don't want to make them feel this. Like in a way, I kind of mollycoddled mental health and their like feelings a little bit and made it like a huge thing because of in society we do that. But in a way, it's like, it's health. Like I wouldn't do that if I was talking about someone's physical health. I'd just be like, hey, how are you feeling?
Yes.
You know?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's part of it. Like maybe I was kind of holding, like kind of following society and what it does and like kind of treating mental health like this thing that we gotta like.
Correct. A bit more precious about it when maybe a better way could be like normalize it a bit more.
Yeah.
Don't have to be so tiptoey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Actually, I do feel that when you tiptoe, then sometimes it creates too much caution.
Yes.
And then it creates a lot of like can or cannot.
Yes.
Right? A very local thing, right? Like, am I allowed to or am I not allowed to?
Yeah.
And then the minute you entertain that dichotomy, most people would choose, okay, I'll just leave it, right? And then just put it aside. And then it becomes more avoidance and it becomes more like ignoring of maybe stuff that might need dealing with.
Yeah. And then in a way that doesn't create space for maintenance of anything. Like, because then no one is doing any like self-reflection. They're just staying in the like comfortable, which is what this whole podcast is about, right? You kind of got to get into your uncomfortable space to work on yourself.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. I think like a very big, I guess maybe this is like a simple tip to anyone listening. If you're ever curious about your own mental health, or maybe just even like your outlook on life, or curious about why is my life the way that it is, right? You ask yourself this kind of questions, which is a great start, right? The fact that you're questioning is a great start. Then I would say the clue is to naturally start to look at the places where you experience resistance or discomfort.
Okay.
Right? Because if something is uncomfortable, then it could be the starting point for you to begin your exploration.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right? And the discomfort is very specific.
Yeah.
It is uncomfortable, you know it's uncomfortable, but it is something that you choose to go, I can live with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. If you're saying these things, that's quite a big clue.
Okay.
Right? Because obviously I'm not telling people to go and like force themselves into big discomfort. Like, you know, let's go do bungee jumping. If let's say you have a huge fear of heights, like probably we need some kind of like acclimatization.
So how do we know that boundary, like of something that we should maintain and something that it's okay to not maintain?
Okay, so I would go, and I'm sure there are many people who have different theories on this. I would go, the way to identify the boundary is you first have to do like your personal check-ins. So you have to be very clear about how do you as like a barometer works, right? Which means that you need to start taking a good look at what you're comfortable with, what you're uncomfortable with. And it has to be quite a thorough exploration, because sometimes you have like thoughts that come up, right? When you are interfacing with people or interfacing with scenarios, and sometimes you have feelings that come up. So then it's about doing the work to have this inventory and to build your understanding of yourself. Right? I think a lot of us go through life and we just go by the statement, oh, I'm like that. I'm just like that, or that's who I am. But then I think I want to propose, like, have you checked in with that question?
Who are you?
And are you actually checking that question? Right? Because technically speaking, we are capable of change. I was about to say we should change, but I realized no, that's not true. Some people can choose to not change as well, and
and that's okay.
Okay is a big word, right? It depends on your level of okayness in that stage of your life. Sometimes people make the choice to focus on like career, focus on their family, right? Focus on a certain kind of relationship. So then it's just about, do you have the skills and the awareness to go, okay, I think something needs to change because maybe something has run its course. And
I think a lot of in society, we judge a lot. And in a way, like I try to do this a lot. I try to check myself first before I judge. I mean, we can't help but judge in our mind. But I think that culture of like outwardly judging, like, hey, this person's doing this. Like this person's doing that. Like, okay, but we should maintain ourselves. We should work on ourselves. And it's okay if that's their journey. I feel sometimes like, it's okay with a very close friend to kind of prod them along and give them some like check-ins. But I think the judging kind of helps us keep away from maintaining ourselves sometimes. Like I feel like the more I gossip or judge others, the less I have to think about myself. Like that brain space is like spent like judging. But I could be doing better in so many different ways. Like,
I think that's a very wise thing to say.
Thank you.
That concept of like brain space, because because we do have limited brain space. Right? And then obviously there are ways to expand the brain space. But actually the more efficient way, at least in any kind of like day-to-day working, is, do we know where we're putting that brain space to and what we're using it for? So fully hear you on the gossip part and the judging part. Because technically you could use that for maybe like self-reflection. Or like some quiet time to recharge. You know, there's so many other things that you could do.
Well, because like one thing I realize that I'm trying to stop is I go on like YouTube or Instagram and I think a lot of us do this, and we go in the comments. And I don't know, do people do this? I use the comments to decide what I think.
What do you mean?
Like, okay, so if let's say a video of something you're really interested in, like a TV show you like. And then sometimes I'm like, what do people think of this scene before what I look at what people think of a certain scene before I make my own judgment of it. And that's really bad. It's like, no, what do you think of it? That's all that should matter in that. So I think that's part even of my like the part of myself is like, oh, I must agree with others sometimes. Like I'm someone who has my own opinion, that's fine. But I also need to know what others think so that I'm not like ruffling any feathers. It's like, oh, okay, you think this and that's like, so I really let other people's comments influence me and like, so I think that's another.
This phase, what does this phase mean? Good thing, bad thing, you don't feel is that great?
I don't think that's great. So what I'm trying to do, the new thing I'm trying to do is something I did reflect on, is I'm trying to like watch something and not look at the comments. Because I think it really, we're talking about brain space, it fills my brain space, people's comments. And I can almost guess what people are going to say word for word now. But that's how much I look at comments.
Oh my goodness.
Like, I can, And so like, I'm like, oh no, I realized, my brain space is really taken up by other people's opinions. Let me just form my own and walk on by. So I think social media really shapes how we think about stuff. So then when I go to, let's say, like an event, like I know like you do a lot of like stranger conversation events. If I go to something like that, I almost like do a run through of their comments in my head before they even comment. And that's not very fair to them. Like, no, just see someone for who they are. So I think social media can really like influence how we like interact in the day-to-day, and that's quite scary.
I think because it is so like pervasive and it's kind of like everywhere. Right? So then it becomes even more important that we be a bit more mindful of like how we behave. Actually, now that you brought it up, I also then I'm thinking and I'm questioning, like, do I have a strong awareness about my behavior when it comes to like how I consume, like stuff online.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing like a little pattern, I guess, in the conversation. And there is this notion of like external influence on us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How do you feel about that? Like what sound like your, I guess, thoughts or perspectives?
I'm a very weird mix of like, I grew up trying to like always be like the different opinion. Like in class, teachers will always hate me because I would be like, no, I don't agree with that. And they were like, why? Like why do you always have to have like a different opinion?
Yeah.
Or like if they say, oh, you didn't do this the right way, I'd be like, no, I think if you look at it this way, like I'll always try to like game the system.
Yeah.
And then somehow when I grew older, I think I just like, I don't know what happened. Like I just am like, oh, okay, like, yeah, that's a great opinion. Like, this is mine, but it's okay that you feel like that. Like, I kind of caveat everything 10 times to make sure everyone is happy.
So there are a lot of caveats and disclaimers.
Yes. And actually, okay, my husband and I do this a lot. So I think we like influence each other in that. And like, I went to university in the UK, and I think in the UK, sometimes also a little bit of that, it's like the politeness thing, you know? And so that a little bit came into play. But I found that shift very interesting in me, where what happened to that rebel side kind of thing. But I think as an adult, also you have to not, like I'm a mom now, I don't think I can do that all the time. Yeah. So sometimes I feel like, in this maintenance that we're doing, right? Like if we say like clean your toilet, like maintain yourself, I feel like sometimes we lose the fun parts of ourselves, or like the adventurous parts, because we're trying to like do the right thing for our work or like for our personal lives.
Correct.
And like, like I used to like jump into a fountain at like, I think I went like, so
it's like more spontaneous.
Yeah, like I went to Vienna in a palace and I jumped into a fountain. Now some may say, you shouldn't do that and you can go to jail. But what happened to that side of me? I don't know.
Okay, but like, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know.
Where do you think she's gone? That person?
I think I'm trying to bring her out a little. I say her, like me, right? It's actually me.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to bring that side of me out a little bit more with my child. Like the other day after it rained, we went to the park and like jumped in puddles and we got dirty. And then like I like hugged him after. I didn't care if I got dirty. And I was like, okay, that's that part of me coming back. And then like I meet some moms who are like, yeah, let's go do some rain play dates and like get dirty together. Okay. So I'm finding that tribe that can bring that out of me, because I don't want my child to not have that side. I want him to not be like so structured like how I am now, you know. I want him to have that side. So coming back. I think in motherhood it's kind of coming back. But,
okay, so then that's good. So she's not gone.
No.
Yeah, you can call her out like anytime. Right. That's
like
amazing.
my alter ego.
I don't know if the alter ego. I mean, alter ego.
Yeah, does that separate?
In my head, alter ego has like many things attached to it, right? Because of media and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I'm more of the take of like, we have many roles and identities as we move through life, right?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like not us, but they're all like inextricably linked to us.
Yeah.
So then the I guess the perspective is, how then do you have enough knowing of yourself so that you're comfortable in all of the roles all the time, as opposed to maybe being controlled by them.
Ah, okay. So like you have to control.
Yeah. So like, for example, what you just shared earlier, where you're making the active decision to go, okay, I'm gonna jump into a fountain. Yeah. I'm gonna do this like muddy thing and have fun with my son and all that. Like that's you being more in control and taking like, you know, whereas the other aspect would be like, oh, I worry this, I worry that. That's a bit more of like, like the influence is exerted differently.
Okay,
yeah, right. Because you do feel, at least how you share, it sounds like there is a bit of that discomfort, right? Like, oh, I have to blah blah blah. I have to be careful of this.
Yes.
Versus, oh, I want to do this excitedly.
And I will do it.
And I will do it, right?
I think sometimes we think maintaining ourselves is like sitting down and like reflecting and like
being quiet.
Yeah, being quiet. But actually, now that you say that, I'm realizing it's like all the mini decisions.
Yes.
So I'm trying to take time to intentionally answer something. Yeah. I don't like it when I just straight away go like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's why even like saying yes to a podcast, like recording a podcast with you or doing something.
It's part of that.
It's like, just say yes to things.
Yeah.
And don't immediately say no just because it's like scary or like you're nervous or like, oh, I'll have to change this aspect of my life to get to that place, you know? So like, let's say someone says, hey, let's go to the park.
Yeah.
It's drizzling, let's go. Doesn't matter. So it's those mini decisions that slowly build and bring that part back to me, to my life, that older part. It's not saying no straight away. I think that's the part. So it's not really, I think maybe maintenance, because I feared it a bit. Like the concept of like clean your toilet. It's like, oh, I got to sit for like half an hour each day and reflect.
And then like
it's like,
go
no.
deep and
you actually don't have to, I guess.
I really like what you said about the mini decisions.
Yeah.
It brought back this memory of it was a client, and then the topic was all around like, oh, I feel like I've lost my spontaneity in life. I feel like I'm just a corporate person working now, and then at least my assessment, I still don't know to this day, is it like a right or wrong thing? It's just kind of what I felt in the moment, right? Yeah. It was like, oh my goodness, this person is just talking about spontaneity, but not doing like the spontaneity, right?
Like just go and do it.
Yeah. So I said like, we're ending the session now, right? I will speak to you again on Wednesday. You will make time for me. From now to then, you go and do 5 spontaneous things.
Yeah.
Things that give you that feeling, and just drop me a message.
Yeah.
Right. So fully not like a coaching thing, like what I've been trained to do. But I just felt like in that moment, I needed to like shake the individual a bit. Because sometimes like the pattern that was showing up was, I just want to talk about spontaneity, but I'm not gonna do the spontaneity. And I keep wondering about what life would be like if I did do spontaneity. So then I said to her, oh my God, you know what? Just okay, you go do the thing, and then we can talk about it after, right? Because if not, we will spend all our sessions talking and thinking and analyzing what spontaneity is like, which is fully not the essence of what.
And actually, some people will go and jump into a fountain, they'll go play in the rain and be like, this is not for me. Like, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then you did the grass is greener thing. Yeah. And you're like, I don't need that now. And I know, and I can be calmer. So when people come to me and say like, hey, why are you like sitting there while we're playing? Be like, I like that. I love when people are decisive because I'm not. I love if I go to a club and someone's sitting on the side and having a drink and not dancing, I love that. Because you decided to do that. Yeah. If I go to you and say like, come dance, you're like, no, I don't like to dance, but I want to be here. Yeah. Love that. But I see, the reason why I like it is because I don't see the thing I hate in myself in someone else. If someone's indecisive, I'm like, ugh, because that's me.
Correct.
Like, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that reflection. It's like if you watch a TV show and that character you don't like, it's normally because it's parts of you that you don't like.
For someone who says that like they're new to this whole mental health thing, I feel like you kind of know some stuff already.
You know how like when people know, but like you're saying, how do you act it out in your life? Just go and do it, right?
Yeah,
so
correct.
That's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah.
Like actually a lot of the people in my book, like every single one of them taught me so much. And that's why I say it was like a selfish endeavor in that way, which is fine, which, you know, whatever with the word selfish. But everyone taught me so much with their like cliche, but it's like their strength and like, and it's like the idea of the fact that they were like, didn't know if it would become a book. They didn't know if it would be anything, but they were like, I'll sit and talk to you for 3-4 hours.
Also,
and say
it wasn't even like confirmed that the book might come out. It's like, I just want to hear your story and I'm going to gather it.
Like I didn't have a publisher when I started doing it. And I was like, I'm going to try to do this. And sorry if it doesn't become something, but like, would you share your story? And I think that's the part where I was like overthinking each step because, hey, this is like a very important thing they're sharing with me, you know, like very deep things, like, and very like life altering things and talking about abuse and all these things. It's not easy for them. And so I need to like hold it safe, hold it comfortable. And I think it changed me a lot where in my day-to-day, I never assume things about people. And I think that's helped me be a better person. Like when I meet someone and they're rude to me, I just think, oh, maybe they're having a hard day.
Correct.
Doesn't mean you can be rude. Yeah. But I'll give you a bit more grace. And like if I meet a friend, I don't assume they have no like severe mental health issues or like we all have in different gradients, something going on. Correct. And like give that person the grace and give them like openness in conversations to give you that moment of themselves. You know, like 100%. I think I wasn't doing that before. Like I have a friend in this book who I knew for so many years, and only through doing the book, he was like, hey, actually, I can give you my story. I'm like, what story? Like, I didn't know, and that means I never gave him. He was like, yeah, I don't share my stuff with people. Why do I burden? Other people have their problems. I'm like, no, I should have given you space. Like when I asked you, so now when I ask someone, how are you? I'll be like, no, really, how are you? Like, I don't need that.
That's so nice.
Yeah, like really? Are you like what went on today? Like I'll ask more questions. And then something always comes up. Like actually yesterday was hard, but I don't need to I'll be like, no, tell me, Yeah. And I think that's helped me become a better person because then you're like giving space, and in giving space, you're always bettering yourself, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because you're not going through life ego, like with the biggest ego, and yeah.
You know what's so amazing right now? Like I'm just getting this clearer insight of like you are at least for the compilation of this book.
Yeah.
It is one great example of like I learned through doing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's an even bigger jump because I am learning through the doing, and it is really different from something that I've done before.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think when I was doing the book, a lot of times I could have stopped because I really feel I didn't get like the impression from people that they were like, it will 100% be a great thing and it'll be a project that will come out.
Correct.
And like I did a panel Writers Fest. No one would have said like, hey, this is going to become a book. You're going to be involved in the book community. I had to do that for myself a lot of the time. And my husband helped me so much. My mom, my sister helped me so much. But with no one else, it was like hey, this for sure will be a great thing. And so I think sometimes in that journey, we have to if we don't maintain ourselves and know who we are, in the moments where we need that confidence, we're not going to get it. Because we're going to be like, but who am I? Like, did I do the work? So if we do the work, we can be like, hey, I can do this. Like, And so I didn't do a lot of maintenance, but I had enough confidence enough to do the job. Do you know what I mean?
What helped you to like keep pushing up against the uncertainty, I guess? Because that's what I'm hearing. Like, you don't know if it's going to become a book. Yeah. You don't know if people are going to, like, you're always constantly like, I hope they're okay sharing with me. And then there's also like the self part, right? Like, am I qualified to do this? Do I deserve this? Can I even blah, blah, blah? Yeah. So it's like you keep pushing up against like question marks or like unknowns or uncertainties. Yeah. What was that experience like?
I think it's exactly what you said earlier, is just do. Like literally, I figured out when I was young, if you just do the thing, then you don't waste that space or time to like question it. And actually that questioning makes me very tired. That's why I get very tired with myself sometimes.
I see.
The indecisiveness makes me like, so with something like this book, it took me like 2 years to do, which it could have been done faster, but there was like a gap where I was like trudging along with it. And then I was like, no, I just got to sit and do it. Because you can't like, I think, and then that, I don't know, that gave me the confidence, like, hey, it's actually happening. I'm actually creating, I'm doing, and it was getting better and better. So like the first interview, I actually had to redo because I don't know if you've heard the podcast Armchair Expert with Dak Shepard. He So he does conversations, which means he actually talks a lot about himself. Yes. So I thought, let me figure out if I'm doing a conversation or an interview. So I was like, let me just do. Yeah. Instead of thinking about it, let me just do the first interview and do it with a friend, and maybe like that will help. And it was a conversation, and he was so confused. He was like, wait, this is what we do all the time, but we're going to be here for 6 hours if you want to get my whole story. Because people actually, their story, you have to, the part I was trying to do with the book was I was trying to like give a winding story that shows them the part about mental health that people don't think about. Like actually it's in all the small moments. There's no big aha moment that helps you with your mental health. So I wanted to capture the whole thing that maybe a short article might not. Yeah. And so the first interview was a back and forth. Like he will say something, I'll be like, oh yeah, it reminds me of my life when I'm like, oh no, this doesn't work. So we redid it and it became like, oh, this is an interview situation. I see. So if someone wants to tackle a project and they wanted one piece of advice, I would say like, don't think about, hey, should I do this or this? Do both. Yeah. And see what works better. Like just do.
Yeah. And so do really the A/B testing.
Yes, do the A/B testing. And like, yes, you maybe do it with someone comfortable, because if I did that with someone I didn't know.
And then you say, sorry, can do again.
Yeah. They'll be like, you wasted like hours of my life telling me about half your life, half, And actually with conversations, I always think that. I don't know what you think about. If you were to tell me something about your life, one way I try to like keep the conversation going is I'll say, oh, in my life, I agree, I do this. And then then try to like ask a question back. But I feel sometimes people don't want that. I feel sometimes people just want to be heard. And like you don't need to give snippets of your own life in that situation.
You don't have to.
Yeah. So that's another thing I'm trying to be better at.
Yeah. I think for me, how my brain works is that I look at the context.
Yes.
Right? And then normally the baseline assumption is like, okay, if this is a social thing, then I'll just be social and I won't be maybe too inquisitive.
Okay.
Or too like try to be insightful, because sometimes I ask like reflective questions and stuff like that, right? So especially with my close friends, I had to kind of keep the lines a bit more separate, because sometimes they go like, are you doing your inner work or like your coaching thing on me?
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Then I'll go like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So now I've
So they like call you out on it?
Yeah, they call me out. So I will adjust and then I'll say like, so do you just want me to listen, or do you like want me to go a little bit deeper?
Wow.
Yeah.
So is that like a clean your toilet moment where you, in your head, because you're quite organized in your
for myself,
thoughts because of work. So that is like how you maintain, correct. From now on, I will look at context and like make sure I don't try to coach a friend.
Yeah.
And then that stores in your mind and that's maintenance you've done.
Yes.
Wow.
And even then, it is still unique to this friend or this group of friends.
Okay.
Right.
So you don't want to assume that it's the case with everyone.
Correct. Yeah. So it's quite interesting then, because it becomes a matter of like a bit like what you said, like where does your attention go? How do you? So it's all self-management, right? It boils down to that. So if I know that a particular group of friends, I want to maintain this friendship, it has to be this way. And then I'll do it that way, right? And interestingly, for this particular friend group, then I like somehow this separation, maybe there's some kind of osmosis or something. They will actively say things like, "Hey, can we just do a one-on-one? Like let's go for lunch." And maybe then I do have some things I want to go into a bit deeper with you, and maybe not like at the group level. So they text me that individually. So then. Okay, then to me that's very clear, right? So when we go for that one-on-one, yes, it's still a bit casual, it's a bit like friend, but we're talking about like maybe the more serious things. Like, there's this situation at work, it's happening, and I just wanted to hear your insight, or like maybe you can ask me some questions that can help me wrap my head around it a bit more. So then the request becomes very clear.
So actually, I feel this is very hard for someone who is not in the mental health industry or psychology industry to do, because I feel like it requires a lot of thinking of others, that a lot of people in our rat race society kind of like, I have enough things going on in my life. Like you take me for who I am. Like we said earlier, like this is who I am. And so I feel like that's sometimes the fear of like, how do I go about this? How do I maintain that? And I think like it's really amazing to have a friend like you that's like, doing that work of checking in and being like, hey, do you mind if we do this? Or do you mind if we do a one-to-one? Or hey, like, can I invite this person? Like a lot of us make those social mistakes. I
guess you could call it that, but maybe I can offer a different perspective.
Yeah,
like the way to figure out this thing, right? Like, I have to be considerate of this context, this person. Then it's like, and then they're like, it's A to D for all of these scenarios. Then suddenly I have like 20 permutations.
Very tiring.
It's very tiring. So actually, maybe a more efficient way is if you look inward. And you kind of like figure out yourself out a bit more clearly. Yeah. Because when you do that, what you will notice is that the way you kind of carry yourself changes. And naturally, this might sound, I don't know if it sounds a bit abstract, but like people and scenarios begin to naturally attract and also self-exclude.
Oh, so like they respond to your energy.
In a way, right? So like, for example, if you begin to go like, I don't know, maybe you do some deep inner work and then you become very sagely, then suddenly you'll find yourself, I'm attracting a lot of wisdom.
I'm attracting sage friends.
Yeah, like sage friends, like wisdom friends.
That's very true.
And then all like the superficial friends are kind of like, oh my God, actually talks too much sage stuff. I naturally don't want to hang out with him too much because I want to talk about like stock market, or I want to talk about like latest fashion trend. Then you begin to naturally see these shifts in the people you hang out with. I think that's maybe a more efficient way.
So self-maintenance is very important, and it actually can do the work for a lot of other parts. Like it will it will kind of, what's the thing? Natural selection.
Yeah, I mean,
everything in your life, right?
You will naturally select in that way. Yeah.
There was a Netflix movie out. I think there's a Netflix movie out about the list of, like, there's something about someone's list of.
I watched that show.
Yeah, so I heard. Okay, so it's the list of maybe you explain it. The list.
It was the bucket list for the girl.
Yeah.
And then because her mom passed away.
Yeah.
And then her mom was observed that her daughter was like out of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when she passed away, she left in her will. Specifically, the will was like, I'm gonna take away your cushy position in my company that I built.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're unhappy, and I just let you park yourself here so that you can be comfortable. And if you want any part of your inheritance, right, you got to finish this thing that I found from when you were 14.
Wow.
And it was like her bucket list to-do list thing.
Okay.
And then it was I mean, the whole plot was quite cute lah. Like you do one task, you get one VCD from me, you know, then it's all pre-recorded before the mom passed, right? So I think the essence of the story was about basically that sometimes people externally can notice when something's off with you.
Yes.
And then in this particular case, there's a bit of a power dynamic, I would say, because it's a mom-daughter thing, right? And the mom is the owner of the company, the daughter is head of marketing of. So at the will reading, it was very dramatic. Like, I can't remember her name. Let's put Alexis, right? So Alexis, you will be removed from your position.
Wow.
And your sister-in-law is going to take over this and then find a new head of marketing. And you will speak to a lawyer separately for your inheritance. So it's very drama.
So what do we think about ultimatums for maintenance of yourself? Like if someone says you better clean your toilet, if not, you have no toilet. Like, or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, what
do we think about ultimatums?
Do you think it's because if someone knows you that you need that tough love, it's fine? Because
yes,
it's like
maybe.
When you pick a therapist, you might not want a tough love therapist.
Correct.
And that might not work. So maybe she knew her daughter could take that, or it's like,
I'm sure, right? So we can talk about all the different contexts.
Yeah.
Like, and I think context is important.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if you're like in a corporate setting and you're not showing up at work, or like I don't know, you skip all your meetings and you take MC, right? Then an ultimatum will probably come your way.
Yeah.
Because you are literally breaking the rules to whatever you agreed to, right? Yeah. Then if we look at like the friend and like maybe even like maybe spouses or like boyfriend, girlfriend, or like your romantic partner thing, that can be a bit trickier.
Yeah.
Because then it's about like how much does another person encroach or affect you negatively. Yeah. Right? Whether is it like energy or I don't know. There's so many. We can talk to the cows come home, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a place for ultimatums. Yeah. Right? And like even though yes, sometimes we want to be in relationships with other people. Yeah. When we talk about personal maintenance, it's also then about that self-care. Yeah. And the situations and the people in my life like working for me or nourishing me or taking care of me. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm sure people listening know this phrase like toxic relationships. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And those are very, very real. Yeah. And sometimes the imprisonment of the individual in a toxic relationship, there is self-responsibility as well, right? Yeah. Self-responsibility because the individual goes, for whatever reason, feel like they can't say, I want to leave or I want to divorce or I want to break up. Yeah. But
it's all the brain work and then, going on.
I don't know, like you can say brainwashing or you self-psycho or you Stockholm syndrome yourself into like staying. Yeah. Right? And it can be very, very scary. Yeah. Yeah. And then that's, I feel like that's a bit hard to cover in today's topic because then it's a whole list of other things, right? Yeah. Around abuse.
Well, it's all connected,
around manipulation.
Isn't it?
It's always connected.
So with my husband, I always try to, in a situation, I feel like a lot of the time, it's like so much easier to be like, hey, you didn't do this. Like, especially with a child, we have a 1.5-year-old. Yeah, you just say. And then it's so easy. It takes away the responsibility from yourself. Like, you did this, you did this. And then I realized, hey, I don't like how I sound. Like, I try to do this. I'm like, how do I sound? Like, do I sound annoying? Do I want to be around myself? And then I realized, like, now I'm trying to say, like, hey, I don't always do this. Like, someone said this once and I've followed it and it works so well. Yeah. The tone fixes, like, 90% of arguments. So I'll be like, oh, I do this as well. Yes. And like, I know that this is like difficult to do, but could you do it this way? And remind me when I do it wrong. And then like totally like his response to it is so much better.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's again a self-maintenance thing.
Correct.
Like that benefits your friendships, relationships. And I think if I didn't do that, I would literally just become even more and more naggy, annoying. Then I become the naggy mother, naggy grandmother.
Yes,
like, you know, it just follows you throughout. And so, I think
it's really about being mindful, right? So self-maintenance is like, are you taking the time to look at, like for in this example, tone, right? Yeah, because sometimes it's really not it's nothing to do with what you say. It's the how you say it, right? Yeah. So I fully agree on that. And I think maybe just add on a little bit, the how you say it normally or could give you a clue to what might be a deeper thing that you're struggling with.
Yes.
Right? So like I'm not even talking about like, let's go deep childhood memory thing.
Yes.
I'm just talking about like, in the relationship, maybe there's some resentment that's been built up.
Yeah.
And because you didn't address the resentment, maybe, I don't know, like your spouse doesn't do chores or something, it comes out that way.
I think weirdly enough, I think for our case, I feel he does so much.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I just find it like, because I'm doing so much like parenting and like he's doing a lot of parenting, but also he's doing like he has like a mix of tasks, whereas I'm like tired from like mothering.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of the tendencies as parents, we just find it easier to snap than come to the reality that like, some moments of parenting are just annoying and difficult. Like, I'd rather say that. I'd rather be like, I'm irritated at you, instead of just the reality is actually being a mom of a 1.5-year-old is hard.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to like take out my aggression. So I'm trying to figure out better ways to take out like my annoyance at things. And like in general, like, so in this journey with this book, right?
Yeah.
And like, coming to me now as who I am, I think when you do nonfiction work and when you're like interviewing people, you do a lot of self-reflection about your conversation style. Like, how are you coming across to someone else?
Correct.
How are you, like, so every time I do an interview, I'll go home to my husband and be like, okay, like, how am I talking to him? Do I put as much thought into how I speak to him as I did with the interviews?
Yeah.
You know, so to me, my life is a lot about conversation. Conversation is very important to me. Like, I remember conversation more than where I am. Like, if we met, let's say, in a month in like a restaurant, I won't know which restaurant. I won't know what you wore.
But I remember what we talked about.
I'll remember what we talked about.
Yeah.
So that is important to me. And so I need to be friends and in a relationship with someone who cares about conversation and likes that conversation. Does that mean at night I might like, he's ready to go to sleep, I might prod him and start talking about something? Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I think that's something I really pay attention to. And that's why it goes back to the thing I said at the start. Like, I think about like conversation. Like, I'm like, how am I coming across? Like, in a meta way in this podcast, like, how am I coming across? Am I making you feel comfortable? Am I doing this? And that's important to me. And so when I did the book, what happened was it became a big part of that, you know?
Right.
So that's, for me, maintenance on conversation is very important because that's what connects me to people. That's what, and so I maintain that in my relationship a lot. Like,
amazing.
Yeah, but I really need to do a lot of work on it. Like, I feel like that's
so maybe I can, like, as we kind of like wind down the conversation, I wanted to ask you something, right? Like, from just how you're speaking and how you're sharing, I feel like you're already fairly familiar with doing personal work and trying to be as mindful as possible, right? So what was our conversation today like? Because as you spoke and you shared your experiences, I guess you're also hearing yourself, right? Yes. What has that experience been like? Yeah.
I find, like, for me, it's always a net positive talking to someone. Even if it's like a horrible conversation, which today was not.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a horrible one, I feel like, hey, I learned something. I had an interaction. Like, I can go like to a bar and have a 2-hour conversation with a stranger. I do that all the time. And you do stranger conversation all the time, right? Like, you do that. And I love that. Like, and if that person was aggressive, I'm fine. Like, I don't like take it home with me. I like be like, oh, that was interesting. I analyze that and I think about it. And so like, for me, this conversation, I always like love learning from people, and I learn so much from you. And I think speaking about yourself helps you realize like, hey, actually, this is what my life is like. This is what, like, now it highlighted to me, I'm trying to be more spontaneous. I haven't thought about that actually. And so it brings up those things, and I do realize maintenance is very important. And I love what you said about then naturally your friendships will flow that way. I think we do attract the people that without energy.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
And so I really love that because I'm making more like mom friends to do like play dates and stuff.
Yeah.
And so like that that I really want to surround myself with people who are similar to me. And so it's making me think a lot about that. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of this?
I don't know. I think you're doing a great job. For one, let me just say that first.
But it's very hard for me to accept compliments. As you probably understood like the self-esteem thing.
Understand. Okay.
So I'm trying to say like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll do the compliment anyway. Then like everyone on camera can watch the struggle. Okay. So I just really appreciate you like sharing of yourself and your experiences so openly today. I think that was like powerful, right? Especially because it was. I mean, not so much about the book, but it was more about the process of going into a space of discomfort and then trying to figure out how do I operate in a space of like extreme discomfort and then also then grappling with like specifically the way your brain works, right? Like, I asked myself this stuff. I got imposter syndrome. And then I got to like analyze first time, analyze second time, and then like retest, right? So that is actually work. Yeah. You know, it's laborious work. But then the result is that you now have a different way of functioning or like healthier ways of functioning. You see those improvements with your husband and everything. Yeah. So I didn't really expect to learn this from you. Yeah. Or to hear this from you. But I do think that it's kind of like a perfect like lesson to take away from today's conversation, right? Yeah. About how like we have to sometimes step out of our thoughts and move into action. Yeah. And then also it actually can be very rewarding if you explore and push towards your discomfort and the unknown. Yeah.
Actually, a last question I have is...
sure, let's conclude on that.
How do we become okay with doing the hard work? If you could give like... like, it is hard. It's laborious doing it.
Yeah, so how do we become okay with
cleaning our toilet? Like how?
Okay. The concept, I'll say this directly to the camera, the concept of hard work is an illusion up to a point, right? If we examine our relationship with the concept of like what we call laborious, what we call difficult, and we begin to maybe re-understand it and make different choices, it can actually become very exciting. So for example, I'm sure that somewhere along the way with doing the book, you definitely found pockets of this is meaningful or this is exciting or I feel the passion, I feel the energy.
Yeah, it became wholly exciting. Right? From scary, it became...
Correct. Yeah. Right. So then it means that the notion of something being hard, actually it is, in a way, it is quite illusory, right? Because we say that it is hard. But then if you remember, why do you even want to start the project? Why did you even entertain the curiosity? Why do you even feel like you wanted to try something? And you put more of your focus on that, then that will put you in a better standing. Yeah, to deal with hard things. Yeah. So take away those thoughts that get in the way of the core of who you want to be. Yeah. Go and do the thing. Yes. Literally go and do the thing. Yeah, literally go and do the thing. Yeah. So, you can figure out the thoughts and feelings along the way. Yeah. Go do something spontaneous and then listen to another episode of this, basically. Amazing. Thank you so much for today. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Cool.